Hey everyone, I'm Nathan Queen, sponsored by Innova Champion Discs, and I'm here to do my 2020 in the bag. We'll start with my setup here. I've used the Zuka backpack cart since the beginning of 2017. It's going on my 4th year. One of the better buys I've done so far disc golf wise. I've got a new bag this year. It's the Fossa Skinny 2. It's worked out pretty well for me. As you see, it comes in and out of that cart pretty easily. All the room I need for, hey Sadie girl. It's got all the room I need for my discs, any extra stuff. I haven't got to use it on tour yet this year with the situation we've got going on, but I'm looking forward to getting it out there. So I figure we'll start with my throwing putters first and kind of go over what I use off the tee whenever I'm on a shorter hole, you know, 250 to 300 or less. First off, we'll do my flippy to straight putters. So I've got Star Colts, 2 of them here. This one's been in the bag the longest. I've got it worn in where I like to throw it on a hyzer flip to stand up and go straight and maybe even glide left a little bit. Really good for wooded shots that you need to control. You can throw it slower so it'll go straight and just kind of sit still. And then I keep a newer Colt in the bag also, which is just going to be straight. You know, I'll throw it flat so it can go straight rather than try to manipulate it at all. So I carry 2 Colts. And to complement that, very similar feel, I've got a stud. It's a little more stable. I'll throw this flat, left-handed. Of course, I'll throw this flat, and it'll go pretty straight, and kind of fade towards the right at the end for me. I use it more in the woods than I do in the open. It handles the wooded lines a little better than the wind. So out on tour, I use this a little less. But that leads me into my most stable throwing putter is the Aviar X3. This will handle any headwind that you put it in. Even if when you try to throw it on a turnover, it'll just flatten out and hyzer back for you. It's a super consistent disc, very reliable, and great for your up shots or up to 250, maybe a little more. But super consistent disc. I added this in the bag last year. Super happy with it. So then I've got the Garrett Girthy Star Sonic. This is something that he gifted me last year. It's a pretty neat to have. This is, I used it some. I'll get a few throw-ins with it from 70 to 100 feet. With my slow putt, my putt doesn't travel that far, so I'll pull this out. This is kind of more my warm-up disc. I'll use this to throw back and forth with people sometimes before a round. And if I got a tricky shot where I don't want to go too far past the basket, I'll try to glide this on in there. It's a super fun disc to have. Flies like a frisbee. Super fun to warm up with. All right, so putting putters. Got back here in the putter pouch on my Zuka cart. Got the Glow D-Line P2s. Around Belton of last year, of 2019, I believe in March, Andrew Marwade was out putting with a big stack of 10 P2s, and I was using DX Aviars at the time. He let me use a couple of those P2s. That was the Thursday night, and the tournament started on Friday. He actually gave me those P2s Thursday night, and I used them in the tournament on Friday. So I switched to P2s pretty quick then. Later on in the year, AJ and Deanne Carey gave me a couple of Glow D-Line P2s with their stamp on them. They're not these ones. But once they gave me those, I think the Glows have a little bit more glide to them, or they just feel a little better in my hand, one of the two. And it switched me to Glow, and I haven't stopped since. I've got a big stack of these, so I might have some fresh ones out that look the same, but I'll be using these all year long. So from there, we'll go ahead and move on to some mid-ranges. We'll go with my understable, starting with the mid-ranges as well. And I keep 2 Mako 3s in the bag. So this Mako 3 right here, I got when I just started touring last year, the beginning of 2019. I was out in Vegas and I realized I didn't bring enough stuff. And I was able to get in touch with the guys at the West Coast store, and they sent me 2 of these green Mako 3s, and I've only used 1 of them. I've had this in the bag since then. I use it for kind of like that first yellow Colt that I showed you guys. This will be slightly longer, hyzer flip to flat, fading to the left, or put it on more of a hyzer so it can stand up and just go straight. Again, being flippy like it is, it's a disc I use more in the woods than I do out in the open. And then the second Mako 3 I carry, it varies more often. I've got one of my new stamps here. I keep a new Mako 3 in the bag so I can have a straight disc. So this one gets changed out more often. This one, even though it's probably one of the prettier ones I've had, it won't stay in the bag too long because I want another new one. And this one will stay in here hopefully another couple of years. So after the Makos, I've got my Rancho Star Roc. This is something I decided on just before USDGC last year. I've been working with different rocks trying to figure out which one to put in the bag. I was able to stop by the warehouse in Rock Hill on the Monday before USDGC, and I picked these up and I actually threw it on hole 1 the next day whenever we teed off. Really consistent. It's flat to stable, so it'll come out of your hand flat and finish pretty consistently off to the right for me, or if you're a right-handed thrower, off to the left. I throw my Gators a little more than I would my rock. I've got a couple Star Gators in here. I use the Star because they beat in a little quicker than the Champion do, and I've always liked the feel of Star plastic, as you can see from the rest of my stack here. This Star Gator's been in the bag for a little bit. It's a Jeff Ash dye, and it's kind of similar to a similar flight to my Rancho Roc down there because I've used it enough, except it's a little harder to turn over. So I'll be able to crank on this and let it fly straight, but it'll still have that Gator finish. Unlike this new one, which is kind of like my Mako 3s there, I'll keep a new Gator in the bag along with my beat-in one. This new Gator is just when I want it to go right. This one's not really going to go straight at all. It'll just hyzer for me the whole time, and probably have a little bit of skip. And that's about all the mid-ranges I carry. We're going to go on to the fairways now, which is the majority of my bag, I would say. Since we've been doing flippy first, I'll keep it that way and go with the one Star Sidewinder I've got in the bag. This is my hyzer flip to turn over disc for the longest distances that I need, or a roller. I've been working on the rollers. It's not my preferred shot yet. But yeah, Star Sidewinder, good in the woods, just like all flippy discs. That's kind of how I learned over in North Carolina. And I can throw it on a hyzer and let it stand up flat. If I don't put too much spin on it, it'll hold that straight line and never really fade for me. And if I put a little more snap, then I'll get it to turn over and float out. But good disc. It's a little touchy, but once you can figure out how to work them, the Sidewinder is a really good disc to have in the bag. Good utility disc. I've got a staple I feel like it should be in everybody's bag, Star Leopard. It's just your general neutral fairway driver. You throw it flat, it ought to stay flat and then fade for you a little bit at the end. You can throw it on an ante and it should hold an ante for you. Or you can throw it on a hyzer, and depending on how beat it is, if this is a kind of a newer one, so if I throw this one on a hyzer, it might stand up a little bit, but it's still gonna finish off to the right for me and have that consistent flight of throwing it, of flying how you throw it. So this has been one of my favorite discs for a long time, and I'll always have a Leopard in the bag. Newer discs that I picked up last year is TL3s. It's a similar flight path to the Leopard, but a little bit faster for me. This one in particular, whenever I was at the warehouse in Rock Hill, was working with Henry Childers, and got a couple college disc golf stamps. This is a Splatter Star TL3. I've been using this one for a little bit. I've got it worked in to be a little slower than my Sidewinder for the hyzer flip shots. I'll throw it on a hyzer to stand up and turn left, and it'll still have enough to fade out if I put it high enough. Really consistent disc also. It flies how you tell it to. And then I've got a little newer TL3 here that John Riviera gave me down there in Texas from Tree Love Disc Golf. This one is just a little more stable than that one. I throw this one flat, kind of like the Leopard. When I throw it flat, it'll go out straight for a while and then fade at the end, but this goes just a little bit further than my Leopard does, and I can trust it a little more, put a little more on it. So from the TL3s, we'll move on to the Thunderbird. This has been one of the more consistent 9-speeds that I've got. I can throw this into a headwind and keep it from turning over. I can keep it straight in a headwind. With a tailwind, I'm not a far thrower, and I can probably throw these up to 410, 415 in a tailwind. If I rip them out flat, a little more flat than I would the rest of my fairway drivers, they've got that glide where they'll keep going straight and have a consistent finish at the end. This one was actually given to me by Kent Cox. He owns Basket Case Disc Golf in Tulsa. He helped me out the last couple months, and this is one he knew was a good disc, and he wanted somebody to have it that was going to be able to throw it well. And I've been throwing it the last couple weeks, and I used it in the tournament out here last weekend, and real good Thunderbird there. Here's another Jeff Ash die. This one's a Thunderbird. It's got my stamp. I've had this one in the bag since last year. I keep 2 Thunderbirds in here just because it is such a reliable disc. I need to have that backup in there. I don't have many backups, but if I lost a Thunderbird, I'd need another one in there, absolutely. So both of these Thunderbirds fly about the same. There's not much difference in them, but it's comforting to have 2 of them in there. All right, moving on to, this is a Star Teebird. This is more of a utility disc for me. I don't throw it very often, just certain situations where I'm not sure what to do. This is kind of what I fall back to. This one's pretty stable compared to most T-Birds, but like I said, more of a utility disc for me. Nice to have a T-Bird in there. I've got 2 fairway drivers left. Pretty similar. This first one's got a pretty good story to it. This is Joseph Thumbs. He came from out in Arizona. A friend of mine, Blue, that I met while I was playing the Watson Skip in Prescott, Arizona. I went out there and I did pretty well, and I won a B tier out there. And his son had drawn this up. He had it dyed on a disc. And once the tournament was over, he was pretty adamant that I take this and get it on film for him. It's a FD3, one of the Simon Lizotte 2-time European champion ones. And I had never thrown it before, but it felt nice when he handed it to me, and he seemed super excited to give it to me. So I told him I'd try to work it in the bag, and I've gotten so many birdies out of it. So this has been a great disc in the bag. It's probably my favorite right now, actually, just because of the way I've got it and the way I've been able to throw it. So thank you to Blue. I appreciate this FD3. And then to back that one up, I do have a Metal Flake Firebird in here. It's a little more stable than that, and just whenever I need slightly more stable than my FD3 to have a finish off to the right, I'll pull out my college disc golf Metal Flake Firebird here. So now what most people probably want to know are the drivers that I throw. It seems like most people get excited about the high speeds. And I've got a few in here. My favorite's gonna be the Wraith. I put an extra one in here, so right now I've got 4 Star Wraiths in the bag. This is gonna be my go-to. Yet again, a Jeff Ash die. He does great work. This is one of my favorites here, kind of like a sunset. Also with one of my stamps on it, so you know I'm a little partial to it. But this is gonna be my go-to Wraith. I will, as long as there's not too much headwind, is when I throw a Wraith. But I'll throw them on flex shots without too much snap and let them come back, or I'll throw them on a hyzer and let them flip up to straight and then a hyzer out. You can do so many different things with the Wraith. That's probably why they're one of my favorites. They're super easy to throw, comfortable in the hand. But this is going to be my go-to. You'll see this the most this year. This one's been in the bag the longest of the Wraiths, so this is my tailwind Wraith. Whenever I've got a tailwind, you'll still see me throw this on a hyzer to flip it up, to stand up and let it fly straight. So this is what I try to bomb whenever I've got a good tailwind. I'll try to get this out there and get it as far as I can. And then the bottom stamp, 168 Wraith. It's a little bit lighter, so I'll use it when there's less wind and I'm trying to get it just a little bit further. I am able to throw this one slightly further with just with the weight, I believe, is all it is. But yeah, again, Wraiths, they're gonna be my distance driver probably 80% of the time. And then I've got this one's the brand new stable Wraith. I've only thrown it a couple times, but it might work its way past that first tie-dye one I showed you there. It's got some stability to it, and those swirls, you just can't, how can you not throw it? So, really enjoy throwing the Wraiths. It looks like I'm down to the last 2 discs in here. So after I go past the Wraith, I skip straight past Destroyer and go to Boss. I use my Boss whenever there is a little bit of a headwind and I don't want to have to deal with having to put too much hyzer on a Wraith and losing a little bit of accuracy. I'll pull a Boss out and I can throw it flat still. It'll handle that headwind and then finish for me and not do much of a flex. I am also able to throw my Bosses on a flex line. If I'm trying to get a little bit further than the Wraith and I'm nice and warmed up, then I'll pull my Bosses out and throw a big flex with them, try to get them 20-30 feet further than my Wraiths go. And last in the bag, my most stable distance driver is going to be the Millennium Quasar. It's something I picked up this year to fight the wind a little better than my Boss does. When the Boss has a -1 turn on it and this has a 0, so there's not much of a chance for this to turn over on you. No matter how flat or on an anhyzer you throw it, this disc has come back for me even in 25-mile-an-hour headwinds or so. Super consistent disc. It's always going to fade for you, and it still goes a long way. Even though it's so stable, it still has enough glide that it'll keep carrying for you. So really happy that I found this year, and I look forward to throwing it in some bigger events. So that is what I've got in my bag. Thanks to Team Innova. Thanks to GK Pro for coming out here and doing this for us. And look forward to seeing you guys this year.